Good morning. I'm Atty. Gutierrez, the former spokesperson of former Vice President Leni Robredo, and this is The Spokes. The impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte enters its fourth week today. To help us examine the constitutional issues of the impeachment trial is a member of the Philippine Judicial Academy and a fellow professor of mine at the UP College of Law, Professor Dante Gatmaytan. Welcome to The Spokes, Prof. Dan.
Hi, buddy. Welcome. Hi, good morning to everyone.
So far, siyempre, first question, the impeachment trial has concluded its first 3 weeks. We're entering yung fourth week, pero mukhang isa lang yata yung araw ng hearing ngayong linggo, today.
Today lang ba?
Yeah. So, what do you expect? What's your assessment so far, rather?
So far, it's a little bumpy, I think, overall. And I think most of the commentary goes to the performance of the defense and senator judges who are working for the defense.
Okay. Pero bago tayo magpatuloy, kailangan ko daw tanong na anong relationship niyo kay Shelo Magno?
That's always the first question.
So it's the second question. Medyo nag-improve tayo ng konti.
We're partners.
Yeah.
We're married.
Kailan ba kayo napakasal ni Shelo?
2003.
Tagal do, ha? Oo nga.
25 na kami next year. 25 years. Showbiz pala to.
Nag-agree ba kayo on most perspectives on politics and society, or may pinagdidebatihan din kayo?
Years ago, very minor things. Pero on the whole, we agree on everything.
Sa mga punto na nagdidebate kayo, sino yung mas nanalo? I assume si Shelo, hindi ba?
According to her, wala naman talagang final ruling dyan eh. Diba?
Tama naman.
Diba? We should know that.
Tama, yeah. Ako kasi I kinda just concede the ground. It makes for a quieter life. But anyway, I'm removing my showbiz hat and we go back to yung substantial na pag-uusapan natin dito. You said you felt it was bumpy. Why
Yes.
exactly?
May mga parang the process itself is not going as smoothly as we had expected, in the sense that I think it's become too technical.
Okay. Yeah.
And that I think is affecting yung perception ng public on the process itself, di ba? Kasi we've been made to understand that it's not a very technical, it's not supposed to be as a courtroom approach. And yet that's what we're seeing. And for the most part nga, it's more technical than a trial eh. Di ba? The number of objections alone. And of course we have to object.
Yeah.
But I mean, in many cases, ano lang naman yan eh, rephrase. And the same question is asked, but it's unduly delaying the resolution of this issue, this case. Yeah.
Do you think deliberate strategy yun, particularly on the part of the defense? Kasi most of the objections have come to from their part, considering that it's the prosecution who's been conducting the examination.
Honestly, I think that their lack of a defense has forced them to make this thing as technical as possible.
Okay.
Sabi ko na nga sa show ni Prof. Shelo ano yan object to death. Kasi walang substance, wala silang they cannot pinpoint or they don't have a strong defense. So what they've been doing really is discrediting the witnesses and that's it. Typically, imputing bias, imputing, that they were remiss in their duties when they were investigating. Yun lang yung kanilang and that these people cannot be trusted because they've lied. Yun ang trust.
Yung raising yung mga previous na mga
cases,
sinabi nila, cases, etc.
Yeah, supposedly, di ba? May perjury cases daw yung first two witnesses. And then yung latest attack kay Matibag was that he supposedly lied about the attack on the Senate, and therefore he's a liar. Yun ang, unfortunately, nag-register sa akin, no, this is your approach. By pinpointing instances when the witnesses supposedly lied, and therefore that's the way you're going to discredit the witness.
Pero won't they say that that's essentially a fair ground for them to cover, considering that credibility of witnesses is actually an issue that they can raise?
Yes, but they weren't lying about their testimony. They're picking an instance somewhere else in history and saying, oh, see, this guy has lied before, so there's no reason for us to trust this person.
Parang because you lied sometime in the past,
Yes.
wala na.
Di ba? And then again, of course, the fact that it's a senator judge who's making this point.
I'll go back to that in a bit. Pero just to pursue itong particular train of thought na ito. So what do you think is the fix? If it's become too technical, and di ba, that's actually a fairly common sentiment na share over social media by a lot of people over the past few weeks. What's the fix?
I don't think the defense will shift at all. I think that's the strategy that they're going to employ. And then,
Okay, sorry. Sorry.
Action.
Action. Oh.
Okay. I don't think they're going to fix that. I think the senator judges have implored, everyone involved to make this less technical, so that we can get to the issues. But I think the defense has nothing else. So that's the way they're going to go until this thing is finished.
Okay. Yung interesting yung sinabi mo kanina na some of these questions, some of these parang attempts to impeach witnesses are actually coming from senator judges. Can you say more about that? Do you think that's proper?
That's improper. Judges are allowed to ask questions, but it is for the purpose of clarifying the testimony of the witness. No? So we actually have cases when the judge starts conducting the cross-examination or the direct examination. Sometimes they've been replaced because of their bias. And in cases where the defendant has been found guilty, the defendant can actually bring up the bias of the judge. And they have been, those cases or those decisions have been reversed on due process grounds. So, hindi pwede yung judge, the judge cannot be the person who will conduct an examination of the witness. And that's what we're seeing now, because they're not asking clarificatory questions. They're the ones impeaching the witnesses. Now, that cuts both ways, di ba? Because if the prosecution naman is denied a fair opportunity to present their case, there is also a due process question there. Yung favorite case dito is Galman versus Sandigan Bayan. No? Yung na-acquit si Rolando Galman doon sa assassination or murder of Ninoy Aquino, and they were invoking double jeopardy. And then the Supreme Court said, yes, pero the entire process was geared towards the release of Galman. I'm sorry, not Galman, the soldiers.
Yeah.
And the
Yung
soldiers.
mga ABSICOM soldiers. Yeah.
We will know what ABSICOM means.
Oo nga pala. Nadi-debate ko yata sarili ko.
Di ba? And in those cases, they were tried again because yung due process rights naman ng prosecution were violated. So, may proper behavior for a judge.
Pero ito yung nakikita kong problem dyan. I agree. There are so many Supreme Court cases that actually call out yung behavior ng judges when they exceed yung kanilang mandate to ask clarificatory questions and actually start advocating for one side or the other.
Yes.
But the correction or the corrective mechanism in those cases, in regular courts, is, well, you appeal it, and then on appeal, the decision is reversed, diba? And the judge is probably sanctioned or called out. But in this case, who will perform that oversight function for the Senate impeachment court?
Yeah, that's a good question because I don't think it's in the rules.
Yeah.
The Senate rules for impeachment. And a lot of issues are coming up that aren't covered by the rules of the Senate for impeachment. But I think there wouldn't be anything wrong if the initiative comes from other senator judges. They could call for as it is happening now, inhibition of certain senator judges because of the manner in which they have conducted themselves during this trial. So that's one way to do it. And some people are speculating, can we, although it might not affect the actual trial, diba, file an ethics complaint for the behavior of these senator judges? Can we possibly disbar them? And it might have a persuasive effect, diba? It could remind them about their functions as judges, especially if they're lawyers, because they should be aware of the case law on this matter. So that's one thing. It could be internal from the Senate, and on the other hand, it could be public pressure.
Well, cutting to the chase, kasi obviously, ang isang pinaka-clear example dito, yung nangyari kay Senator Pia Cayetano recently. Over the weekend, a spliced video was posted on her official Facebook page.
Yes.
Essentially, putting Congressman Chel Jokno in a bad light, and more significantly, changing yung tenor ng statements that he delivered on the floor
Yes.
of the Senate to something completely opposite. So there have been calls for Pia Cayetano to inhibit, for her to be sanctioned. How do you think that can realistically play out in the context of the impeachment court? Can the presiding officer, for example, do anything? Can the senators take a vote? Can the prosecution actually file a motion to inhibit? And what would be the effect of that?
I haven't felt like this since persons. Yun na nga, kasi it's a gray area. I think we should try. I think we can try all those options. And welcome judicial intervention on this point. In other words, the Senate has to take a stand, take some action, and if let us say, Senator Cayetano agrees, then bring that issue up. Kasi hindi naman yan, di ba, yung substance ng trial. So, that's one way to do it since the rules, I think, are not clear. But, as I said, those other remedies, including disbarment, can proceed independently of what happens in the Senate.
Well, yeah, I suppose yung disbarment is a separate thing. Yung ethics complaint is a
Yes,
separate thing. But you brought up the Supreme Court, which I think, from a constitutional law professor's perspective, don't you think that the moment we start allowing the Supreme Court to rule on anything related to the trial, there is a danger that they will now encroach into a space that the Constitution exclusively reserves, supposedly for the Senate, the power to try and decide cases of impeachment.
But early on, the Supreme Court has explained that generally they shouldn't step into impeachment cases. However, they say that if there is a constitutional provision that needs interpretation, then they have to fulfill their function. And one of the earliest examples of this we have is the one-year bar rule in the case of Justice
The Francisco case.
Yes, the Francisco case, diba? And somebody had to resolve it because we didn't know if there was a violation of the Constitution. Now, that should be kept to a minimum. And if your question is, aren't you afraid? I am. I am after Duterte versus House of Representatives last year, where the Supreme Court seems to have forgotten exactly what you just told me. Which is that the Senate has sole power to try the impeachable official. And what we saw instead was the Supreme Court writing the rules for impeachment for both the Senate and the House of Representatives. And a lot of us were thinking, well, that's really encroaching on the functions of the political branches of government.
Pero isn't that the problem? Where do we draw the line? Kasi even in Francisco, I remember, nung final yung case na yun before the Supreme Court, there were a number of amicus briefs who actually urged the Supreme Court not to intervene in that particular case, even do sa very limited na lang na space na we're interpreting what the one-year bar rule means. Precisely because of the idea na when we talk about impeachment, well, that's been given by the Constitution to the political branches of government, the House of Representatives and the Senate. So, in this case, ano yung safeguard? Or ano yung acceptable guide na hanggang dito lang kami? Dito lang tayo.
Dapat nga, are we interpreting a specific provision of a constitution that requires interpretation? Other than that, nga, the Supreme Court can say this is something for the Senate to resolve by itself. And hopefully it goes that way.
Hindi, pero halimbawa, yung the actions of senator judges in asking clarificatory questions or their actions outside of the impeachment court itself on social media. Is that something that the Supreme Court can validly be asked to police in a certain sense?
They can always justify it if they wanted to. They can always say this goes to due process, and the rights of the respondent in this case. The question is whether they will restrain themselves and allow the process to continue. And there's always a risk.
Okay. You said that impeachment is a constitutional duty and not a political option. Now, I think that's something that's come up time and again sa conversations on impeachment, whether it's more political or more constitutional or legal. Can you share your thoughts on this point?
People say it's a political process, not strictly legal, because it's not a courtroom proceeding. That's precisely why impeachment was not given to courts. Impeachment was given to the representatives of the people so that they can assess whether certain government officials deserve to keep their positions or to serve the country in whatever capacity. In that sense, it's a political question, right? And now the Supreme Court has said it is political and legal, which justifies their intrusion.
Their intervention.
Their intervention in the process, because it's not purely political, and that they said due process has to permeate the entire process. And I think that's where they got a lot of criticism, no? Because it's as I said earlier, they ended up writing the rules of impeachment, which is, I think, not the way the framers intended this thing to go. So, sobrang daming requirements, none of which, barely any of which are found in the Constitution.
Which I think is also yung source of concern for many observers.
Yes, as in now, I mean, if you look at comments on shows, it's like there's so much distrust now for the Supreme Court precisely because of their the performance doon sa Duterte versus House of Representatives.
Okay. So, what are your expectations when the impeachment trial tackles Article 1, yung misuse of confidential funds next week? But before you answer this, the spokes will return after this short break. And the spokes is back. At kasama ko na ang aking partner, Secretary.
Magandang umaga po. I'm very sorry. Napaka-traffic at Barry. I'm very sorry, but I'm here. So, magandang umaga pong muli. And Professor, thank you so much for joining us. So, before we go to our hanging question kanina, Atty. Barry, would like to acknowledge first our live viewers' comments and questions. One of which is si Francis. Isn't not the purpose of cross-examination is to try to discredit or to test the credibility and relevance of the witness?
Yes, if it is conducted by counsel for defense. That's exactly what the counsel for defense is supposed to do. But it's improper for a judge or a senator judge in this case to actually perform that function. Kasi sila yung objective, di ba?
Mga judges lang sila dapat.
Yes.
Ito, from live viewer Tina Gabriel, biases from all senator judges are all truly recognizable. Walang makapagtatago, lahat kanya-kanyang style. Do you agree?
No, I think if we took a survey, we couldn't identify if there was a range of behavior that we could object to. You couldn't put, let's say, someone associated, a Tulfo, for example, in the same category as Senator Pia Cayetano in terms of questionable acts. All you have to do is like listen to all their questions. But I think no one has advocated so strongly as Senator Pia Cayetano has for the defense. Am I getting in trouble for that?
Well, sometimes I think they cannot help it. After all, as you said, it's also a political process and they are the political actors.
No, but yun na nga eh. It cannot be tolerated. It shouldn't be tolerated because you are the judge, or Senator Cayetano is the judge. And therefore, despite their biases, they should strive to be as objective as possible. And that it shouldn't show sa kanilang questioning.
And she should know that because she's a lawyer as well.
Yes.
And she has actually repeatedly reminded us all of the fact that
She is a lawyer.
and she comes from our school.
Yes. Kabatch ko siya actually.
Oh, talaga?
Oh, kasi masyadong heightened yung emotions ni Senator Pia lately. Kaya ganon. Anyways, maybe we can go back to our hanging question already and later on yung mga live viewers again. What are your expectations when the impeachment trial tackles Article 1, misuse of confidential funds?
I expect the defense to reproduce their earlier arguments when they filed their answer doon sa impeachment complaint. They are not going to stray from their narrative. And that means by confidential funds, ang sasabihin nila dyan, among other things, hindi pa final yung COA finding, there is in fact, di ba? These were properly used. We cannot reveal, the identity of the people who received money because it's confidential. The same thing that we have heard during the House deliberations.
Yeah.
Dun pa, all the way back there, they have never changed their arguments. And they will do the same thing.
Pero do you expect any new revelations? Kasi gaya na sinabi mo kanina, Prof. Dan, na-cover na natin tong ground na to both in the House nung impeachment deliberations and actually even earlier in late 2024, early 2025 doon sa Quadcom investigations.
Yes.
So,
The thing that worries me is all this talk about Mary Grace Piatos
okay.
being a real person.
Okay.
Diba? Because if that happens, this never happens in real life. If this happens, it usually is a stunt.
Okay.
Diba? Or an excuse sabihin na, see, Mary Grace Piatos actually exists. It is her pseudonym. And all the money went to this person. And, circus na talaga yan sa akin because they could have said those things initially. They could have said that all
That
the way
she
back
really
to
exists.
yes. That this what we found instead was that the government could not find any person by this name or all these other names na ginagamit nila supposedly received confidential funds.
But you think that they will do that? As you said,
Bakit
it will be too obvious. So, but it can be their last, last line of defense when it comes to the misuse of confidential
But they
funds.
they will probably stick with their usual arguments. First, these are confidential. We follow the proper procedure, etc. And if that doesn't work, surprise witness.
Meron ba kayong gustong ini-expect o gustong makitang lumabas dito sa particular article ito to shed light on this conversation?
If you were the prosecution, a part of the prosecution, perhaps.
O meron ba kayong ini-expect na hindi natin nakita sa House? Kasi
In that sense, nga, wala. We've heard it all
We've seen
before.
everything.
Yeah. So the prosecution will do its job. And then, as it is laid out in the articles of impeachment, ang ano lang talaga dito is the defense, because to be honest, it really looks like they have their work cut out for them, considering the evidence that the prosecution is presenting.
ito, may possible legal point dito. During the House hearings, one of the witnesses na tinawag nila on the confidential funds issue was actually Attorney Michael Poa, who is now appearing as counsel for the defense. Pwede ba yun? Can he be called now in the impeachment court as a witness for the prosecution, even if he is counsel? Or can he say, dahil counsel ako, I can refuse to actually appear as a witness.
Maybe before you answer, Professor, just for those who are not familiar, kasi nga, he used to be undersecretary
Yes.
at the Department of Education.
Yes.
Right.
That's why he's sort of, part of
Yes.
the entire...
Yun yung justification for
yun
calling him as a witness. Yes.
Yeah.
I think he should. I don't think he has a defense. I'm just, or maybe it's what I want to say.
You're
So you think
saying
he
that
can be
he
called-
cannot say no. You're saying...
Yeah, but di ba? I don't see what the argument is. I'm the lawyer now, therefore I'm not under any obligation to answer those questions.
Do you think strategy-wise though, dapat gawin ng prosecution yung ipatawag siya? Considering that, well, one, this is obviously not a witness that will be sympathetic to their cause. Malamang hostile witness yan. Pangalawa, abogado to. So, hindi naman yan madaling
Ma-cross-examine.
I think he was able to extricate himself later when he said that yung mga funds were reimbursements, di ba? Kasi before, hindi ganun kaklaro yung kanyang testimony. But of late, I'm not sure what... dun sa House hearings on... when they were trying to determine yung probable cause,
Yes.
di ba? Nag-appear pa siya dun.
Yes.
And he said, it's not, it's just reimbursement because wala kaming petty cash, so I tend to give out money. So, baka nga, he's not going to be that much use. Considering you have other DepEd officials
who can testify to the
who are-
same
yes,
thing.
Yeah.
di ba? And I think they're saying that they were in fact receiving envelopes from the Vice President containing cash. And they have stood by that testimony.
So to go back to the question of Attorney Barry, it's not going to be strategic. It won't matter.
It will matter if they have enough witnesses. And I think they do.
Yeah.
We have another question or comment from our viewer. As long as the obvious that there are biases, the Supreme Court will be the last resort? Will they intervene? That's according to Jane.
Well, okay. At any point, or are you talking about the ultimate resolution of the case?
Actually, both.
Yeah.
Actually, both.
Yeah.
Pwede ba yun? But can the Supreme Court intervene at any time?
Actually,
that's another question.
that's the question.
Yun na nga eh. If there is a question or a constitutional issue that has to be resolved, they can justify it. We need to interpret this provision, and it could include yung number of votes, for example. But so it could be a legal issue, di ba? On one hand, you can say we have to resolve this right away.
But sorry, Professor,
Yes.
but before the Supreme Court can intervene, there should somebody has to file a case.
Yes.
So at any point, if there's somebody who will file a case, then they can.
They can.
Okay.
So this is what could possibly happen, di ba? They can say, we have to interpret this so that before we actually get to the voting, the rules are clear.
Okay.
That's one way they can justify their what did you say kanina? Intervention.
Intervention.
Their intervention. The other way for them to act is to let the entire process finish. Have the Senate decide how they're going to vote, and then say, well, that's what the Senate said, and according to the Constitution, they have the sole power to try
decide.
impeach officials.
Yeah.
So I don't know which way this thing is going to go. Or they might resolve the issues after. Di ba? Ipapamoot na nila and say, well, it's moot now, but for the future cases, they're going to start interpreting yung number of votes. And I do use that as an example because it can be the dilemma that the court will face for a bunch of other questions along the way.
Can be a precedent.
Ito, meron tayong another comment from one of our viewers, si Bong Sanchez. If you were to judge the grave threats article from 1 to 10, how will you rate it? I suppose he's talking about yung prosecution side. Do you think they were able to meet the
Yes, yes.
standard of proof
Oh,
required?
I think the only confusion that is being discussed sa social media is, wala namang kayong napatunayan na assassin. Di ba?
Okay.
And that causes confusion kasi that's not an element of the crime of grave threats.
Yeah.
Di ba? Ganun lang yung kasimple. So that's not an element of grave threats. And so why are we talking about it? Why are we spending so much time dealing with it? Because the NBI wants to know if the Vice President is capable of carrying out the threat. So you look to see, did she actually contact someone? And it goes to the argument na, yes, it's grave threats kasi pwede niyang gawin considering who she is and the power that she wields. Pero do they actually have to have a person identified? They don't, because all the elements, I think, have already been proven by the prosecution or shown by the
Again,
prosecution.
threat nga lang, di ba?
Yeah.
Threat lang. But a lot of people are making, I think, deliberately confusing it. Or confusing us and saying, well, nobody died, therefore there's no threat.
That's
So,
no crime committed.
so to honor his question, 1 to 10, anong rating mo dun sa presentation of prosecution?
I was trying to avoid it.
Eh, nag-check ka naman ng papers ko yun, Prof. Dan, so sanay ka mag-grade.
If you say that, mababa yung lalabas. No, I think it's in the upper half naman.
Okay.
Oh.
So at least
So
6,
five.
ganyan.
5, 6.
More 8.
8.
Oh, mataas yun, di ba?
Para kay Prof. Dan, knowing him, mataas yun.
Ganun ba? Professor mo ba siya dati? Or
Hindi,
were
hindi.
you colleagues? You were colleagues.
Colleagues.
Mabata. Ibig
Hindi,
sabihin,
nung-
bata ka, Atty. Mario.
Nung magkasama pa kami full-time faculty ako, kami yung dalawang sobrang madaming binabagsak. Pero nag-mellow na ako sobra, si Dan hindi pa
Buti
rin.
na lang, hindi kayo naging professor ko.
When there was time, nagtuturo na yung evening class.
Oo.
You, Ging or Sua, ako.
Grabe, parang nagbura yung klase. Yeah.
Okay, so what kind of constitutional precedent could this case leave behind? You
Yun
were talking about it earlier, right? Yung ano po, yung what do you call this, with the Supreme Court.
Yes. There are already precedents. This case has already generated that. When you look at the Duterte versus House of Representatives cases, because you have to study both cases to see what the rules are now when it comes to impeachment. Diba? Ano ba dyan yung ruling? Alam ba dyan yung obiter dictum? Na hindi naman actually part of the ruling. So you have that in terms of process and due process rights. But then we have other questions arising, and that would include yung behavior ng senator judges, because somewhere along the way, that will become a legal issue. And then another example that we already discussed was yung how many votes do you need to convict the vice president?
And
All of
this will be constitutional. These are constitutional issues, and this cannot be resolved by just like amending the rules of the Senate.
I think. No.
I mean, it has to go through.
Even if you amended it, some people will be offended. Diba? Hindi
So they
naman-
will question.
So they will
They will-
still question it
whoever
and bring it
loses
up to
on that
the
point,
Supreme
yeah.
Court.
Do you think that given everything we've seen so far, yung mga issues na yan, some questions on the credibility of some of the senator judges o yung impartiality nila, do you think the public will accept yung ultimate outcome?
I think there's going to be a breaking point. Diba? I think right now we're trying to stay engaged. Diba? But if and a lot of people said it in the beginning, if you want your impeachment to be respected, then there has to be credibility. And if what we watch every day cannot deliver that kind of a message, then we are going to have a problem with whether the public will accept the decision of the Senate sitting as an impeachment court.
So what do you think is the breaking point, Prof? I mean, there could be a lot, but you know.
A lot of it, I think, will have to do with the amount of evidence that is presented. And the worst case scenario I can imagine is you have all these evidence to support the articles of impeachment, and then you have a defense that cannot counter the evidence, and that somehow the vice president is not guilty. Di ba? Yan yung problema. And I think the reason why they did everything they could to stop this trial from proceeding is because they don't want this kind of evidence out there for the public to see, because once you do, you cannot unsee it. And then you would have to make a decision based on the evidence that's right there in front of everyone.
Ito, meron na naman tayong another phone-in question from viewer Francis. Comment. The only debate in Article 4 is whether or not grave threat arises to the level of betrayal of public trust.
And that is for the Senate to decide. Diba?
Do you think they've actually established it, yung prosecution at this point? Personal opinion nyo?
The grave threats?
The betrayal of public trust part. Whether the fact that they proved grave threats actually means that they have also met yung standard for betrayal of public trust, which is yung laman ng Article 4.
No, but that's what they're arguing at, right? So, in fact, Matibag was very consistent on that. Diba? The pronouncements of the Vice President already amount to a betrayal of public trust. Yeah. So, and that's what I mean. Now, the Senate has to vote. So, personal opinion, yes. You want that answer.
Ano ba yung standard constitutionally when we talk about betrayal of public trust?
Then, there are a couple of cases that talk about what constitutes it, which I wish I had reviewed, but I did not. So, but whatever those cases say, it doesn't mean, I think, that the Senate cannot interpret the definition,
of course,
and expand it. Yeah. Diba? Or else, why would they be given any kind of discretion in determining guilt? Diba? Especially for issues that have not been settled. So, pwede pa rin yan.
At the end of the day, it's a judgment of the senators.
Yeah.
Yes.
Talaga.
Among the 4 articles, what do you think is probably going to be the most difficult for the prosecution to prove?
It looks like yung bank records.
Okay. So that's Article 2. Article 2. Bakit?
Well, the prosecution is saying, and we saw this already sa House, diba? When they were gathering evidence, that there's a lot of yung volume of money going through the Vice President's accounts have to be explained, diba? Kasi nga, if you're a public official, if your income is grossly disproportionate to your salary, there's a presumption that it's ill-gotten.
Yeah.
And that's what they have to explain. And so far, what they've explained to the media didn't work. Diba? Remember in the House where they refused to participate, and then they will answer questions
via press con.
Via press con, diba? And that's what they did, and I don't think it worked either, diba? Hindi naman daw nagstay yung pera. I think that's what they were saying there. It was just in transit, and therefore somehow that's not an offense.
Do you think yung on the point of yung mga bank records, because the court decided, ginarant yung subpoena na hinihingi ng prosecution, do you think that was a reasonable decision under the circumstances? Kasi ang argument ng defense was, nababiolate yung privacy rights, nababiolate yung letter of the confidentiality clauses in all these laws.
And the case was filed by the husband of the Vice President.
Well, yun na nga. But it's reasonable to go to your point first, di ba? The reason why you have to include the husband's wealth is because I think they are commingled. And if we don't do that...
Absolute community sila eh. Yeah.
They are?
Yes. Okay. Tinanong yun during the trial. When were they married? So na-establish that it was post-family code. So absolute community.
So yung mga ganun, di ba? It will encourage people to hide their wealth. Diba? By marrying a private person, sabi na, you can't touch that because he's not a public official. So, there's that. Ano pa yung sinabi mo kanina? Isa? I can't remember your other...
Hindi, yung issues on interpretation of the laws, which seem
yes,
to
yes,
prohibit
yes.
any disclosure. Sa AMLAC law, they're saying, nakalagay dito, the employees are absolutely barred from disclosing
There
any
are
of these
cases on
reports.
that already, and convictions have been attained by using AMLAC records. So, wala nang problema dyan. And the tenor of the Supreme Court decisions here would say these laws were not designed to protect criminals. They are designed to protect good citizens who want to prosper. But they have a bunch of cases that are in their way. So defense.
So, when history looks back on this impeachment, what will matter? The verdict or how the process was conducted?
No, I think they're tied together. Your process has to lead to a verdict that is justifiable. So, hindi pwedeng, maganda yung process natin, tapos your verdict is inexplicable.
Pero alam mo,
Hindi consistent with what else happened.
And vice versa.
pero feeling ko yung procedure kasi para tayong nanonood ng Netflix na series every time we watch the impeachment. Okay, so we're here. We're down to the tough question, Atty. Barry.
Ito na yung portion namin na we ask tough questions. Yung mga iba, ano lang yun, parang appetizer.
Pero parang hindi mga tough questions
my last
din
time.
eh.
I didn't even know it.
Hindi na siya mag-guess next time si Prof. So how would you want the issue of 16 votes of senator judges to be tackled by the Supreme Court?
First of all, I'm not saying it should be. It could be after this case. Did you want the formula? Did you want what would my argument be?
Yes.
Yes.
I think if you use an extreme example where you have 15 senators left.
Which can actually happen.
Yun na nga. If we said this
Or
2
less
years
pa
ago,
nga eh.
yun na nga. So what if there are only 15 left? Then do we interpret the Constitution to mean that, well, you cannot therefore have an impeachment or an official impeached because, well, it said 2/3
Of all.
of all. On the other hand, yun na nga, that's what the people are saying, well, it didn't say 16, which means 2/3 of all could still be interpreted by the courts. It sounds to me like an invitation to construe, the Constitution. Kung kasi if it's solid 16, then they could have said 16 votes. And they said, but they didn't say that.
Yeah. So it could be interpreted as 2/3 of what? So again, it's what number, di ba?
Ano yung
Of-
whole?
What is the 2/3?
Ano yung noun?
What is
Ano
the
yung whole?
whole of
Ito, second tough question. Punta tayo sa SONA. Do you think the President made the right call of not mentioning anything about the impeachment trial in his SONA?
Yes, because politically, he's not assured of how much support he has from Congress. Diba? And you can see, he doesn't have an absolute command because there are people there who refuse to stand, who refuse to applaud. Their arms are folded. And if you start talking about impeaching the Vice President, then you will have a reaction from them that probably won't look good
Yeah.
in your SONA.
I agree. And we don't need that. We don't need to hear it from him at this point. No? Ang daming problema ng bayan.
Saka he's
natin.
been fairly consistent naman na, hindi, that's the
No.
Senate, that's the House.
And I think that's the right call. So from the 8 minority senators, who do you think has the possibility to switch sides?
Uy, that's not
Masyado
legal.
juicy, ano?
Hindi na yan legal question.
Oo nga. Political to, political. So personal perception, personal opinion na to, hindi na based from the Constitution, Prof.
Well, not the most vocal of the minority, so that would leave out the Cayetanos. Senator Robin Hood Padilla. Yun pa ba?
Yun ang pinaka.
Yun ang pinaka.
Yun ang pinaka.
And those will not. They will never switch.
Amy Marcos.
And Amy will not switch. And maybe even Loren.
Why do you think Lauren? Sige
Which is
na
worse
nga.
than
Sige na nga, hindi
cross-examination
na.
sa trial.
Hindi na. Another tough question na daw. Si Villar daw. Baka hindi na kasi mag-guess sa atin si Prof later eh.
Pinatayaon the politics of it. Okay. If you are writing the next constitution today, would you still allow politicians to actually sit as judges in an impeachment trial? Ibig sabihin, do we still maintain it as a political process?
Yes, but we have to put additional safeguards to address the issues that we're seeing now. Diba? Halimbawa yung partiality, etc. And if we're amending the Constitution, we might as well just put all the provisions that we can think of to rein in the politicians. Diba? Or what's your option? Make it legal? Mas marami pang na-acquit dito sa Pilipinas sa criminal cases than
So with that, Prof, do you think it's already time to change or amend the Constitution?
There are many reasons to amend the Constitution from way back. The problem is we don't trust our politicians. Diba?
Magiging Pandora's box kasi,
Yes.
diba? You know.
And they lie about it. They say stuff like, well, we're only going to touch the economic provisions.
So are you saying na dapat baguhin or hindi? Dapat.
Objectively, there are many parts of the Constitution that we can change, improve. But if we start
The question is,
opening...
do we trust the process?
Yeah.
Alam mo, I went to a conference once sa Asia, and all the other countries were talking about how many times they've amended their constitution. I mean, ano silang mga typology. These are the kinds of amendments that we have. Ako lang yung walang presentation. It was about constitutional amendments, and we didn't have one. Diba? Up to now, we don't have one until 4.
We haven't
So
amended.
up to now, if we still don't have trustworthy, quote unquote, legislators, you don't think we should touch the Constitution yet?
Yun na nga, I think we should.
Ah.
Pero, the politicians have not exactly been improving their reputation.
Will it help if we delegate it to a constitutional convention rather than just Congress acting as a
Yeah.
constituent assembly?
But who's going to run there?
Ikaw!
Another Vilyonaryo.
Diba?
And who's going to appoint those?
Tatakbo rin dyan yung mga dynasty. Unless we have a prohibition. We can.
Kung kamag-anak.
We can actually. So it might, if we could depoliticize the process through a constitutional convention, then yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Dante. And please give our warm regards to Professor Shella.
Yes,
She was our colleague in USAID.
yes,
Yeah.
she told me.
Yes, okay.
The strength of our democracy is measured not by who wins, but by whether the Constitution is allowed to work.
When the law speaks louder than politics, the Filipino people are the real winners. I am former Secretary Relly Fajardo.
I'm former VP spokesperson, Atty. Gutierrez.
And we are the Spokes.